Welcome to Startup Wins. Twice a month, we share real stories and smart tips. Subscribe and join the journey.
Welcome back to Startup Wins. We are here with a lovely guest, Alina Vandenberghe. Is that how we pronounce that? Yeah, no, thank you for joining the show here today.
Thank you for having me.
So Alina is co-CEO of Chili Piper. And would you mind telling us a little bit more about yourself and the company?
Sure. This is my first startup, and I co-founded it. The reason why I'm co-CEO is because I started with my husband and my co-founder 9 years ago. I did that after climbing the traditional corporate ladder and understanding it was not a fit for me, not for my personality. And me and my co-founder, we have very complementary skill sets. So when we started, we split our responsibility very clearly. He was GTM, so sales, marketing, operations, and I was on the product side, so product engineering and everything that was related to that. Now we keep switching, we move around, but it's been the most exciting journey of my life to date.
Yeah, I bet. Well, what inspired you to kind of go and launch this company? You obviously had done a lot of successful, jobs before, but what made you like, now I'm going to go run my own company?
Well, traditionally, the corporate America that I was part of, and I was part of publicly traded companies, I was part of some larger startup as well, is not great for people that are entrepreneurial like me, because there's a lot of red tape, there's a lot of constraints on how fast you can move and how much you can break. And I'm definitely one that moves with a lot of speed. I'm definitely one that breaks things a lot, and there was no space for that.
So you wanted to do a little more breaking with no restraints, basically, right?
Yes. Well, if you want to create great things, you cannot go with a traditional playbook, right? You have to walk off the edges and try things that have not been tried before. And usually those things are scary for most people. But what I think was different about entrepreneurs and the rest of the world is that entrepreneurs, they're okay and comfortable with breaking things. They're okay with taking the big risks. And I'm definitely very, very, very comfortable with high risks. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, tell us a little bit about maybe some of those things that you did break that maybe you learned a little bit from, or maybe some crazy stories along the way.
Oh my gosh, I got almost fired so many times. So I guess I can tell the story when I came here in US, because I came from Romania. I was not born in US. And I was a temp worker, sort of like an intern. I was, I don't know, paid $15 an hour, I think. And I was one of the few people in the company at that time who had the experience, like a portfolio in mobile. I had done that for free in the evenings with all sorts of other entrepreneurs. I'd built a portfolio of mobile apps. And Thomson Reuters had the opportunity to be included in the launch of the iPad before the iPad was launched. And they didn't have employees that knew much about it, but I was very ready to take that project on. We had to sign an NDA. It was in basement with no windows. We had access to the iPad before anybody had the iPad. It was just me and two other people with a key to that room, and nobody else knew what we were doing in that room. So we built an app. We added some video on it. We added news. We had financial information and charts, and we made it super cool. But we hadn't heard back from Apple if they would approve of us or not. We didn't hear much of feedback until when the day of the launch, we see that Steve Jobs keynotes our app and decides to pre-install it on all iPads out there, Thomson Reuters news app. So all of a sudden, Reuters got 30 million users out of the deal, out of the iPad app that it was me and another guy that built together. And nobody knew inside of the company that's what I was doing in the basement. I was like an intern. And after I got some I remember I was interviewed by a New York Times journalist. What did I do? How did I go about the process? The app was everywhere in Times Square. I thought, oh, I made it in America. because it was a great thing, a great story. And then like 3 days after, I was called in the office by my boss at that time, and he said, Alina, you did great with this app, but you're not a team player, so you're fired.
Oh my God.
He was right. He was right. Like I was not a team player. I was in the basement, not talking to everybody. So yeah, those are like some things that happened to me through the journey.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. Well, obviously that it was a good learning. So then you probably pivoted a little bit more in terms of working together with people and stuff like that. But now that you're running Chili Piper, well, first off, let's talk about Chili Piper. So tell us a little bit more about that company before maybe asking more specific questions.
So Chili Piper is in the agentic market space, precisely demand orchestration. So we help companies and revenue teams to double their conversion rates and create more revenue out of the same pool of leads and make sure that they get converted, that they get to sales, that they get into sales qualified opportunities, all the routing, intricacies, meetings. We have even an AI SDR product that kind of handles your inbound traffic and qualifies it and turns it into opportunities. This is our space. So it's like handles most of the top funnel channels for B2B teams. We have really cool companies as customers. We have Cursor, we have Monday.com, Gong. We also have like the large companies like Verizon and Meta. It's a lot of fun. It's very complicated, a lot more complicated than serving the sales space or the customer success space. I got into it by accident. I didn't have like a grand vision of how I'm going to enter the space. I didn't think, I didn't have like a precise, clear vision of what I wanted to build, but I started with a very strong conviction that, and I sold my house because I had that strong conviction that with my talents and my husband's talents, we can create a company that's a lot of fun to work in. And that's what we did.
Wow. You sold your house. That must have been pretty crazy.
Yeah. There was a very strong conviction, yeah.
So then after selling your house, you basically had the initial capital to kind of spend the time on the product. Is that correct? How long was that runway before you started to find where it was, stable enough or maybe a product market fit?
Very early. And the reason for that is because my background and my roots. So in Romania, I started working since I was 8. And I started making, taking care of my needs as a human very early on. So I became very disciplined about cash. I became very disciplined about understanding the mechanics of financials and things of this nature around 13 or 14. Actually, it was earlier than that. I was 12 when I already had like a team of 40 sales reps.
Wow.
So I understood the mechanics of keeping keeping the lights on very early on. So I was very focused on cash preservation and like making sure that we sell the product even before we build it. So we were on great footing from the beginning, but we only reached 3 million in AR about 3 years in or something like that. It was not as easy as these days with AI, but it was fun.
Still, that's strong ARR, within 3 years, right?
Well, these days you expect companies to be 100 million in ARR in like 5 months, so.
Well, I actually, funny enough, I just finished the first draft of a unicorn book, and you're right. It's crazy how fast some of the companies, reach a certain level of revenue, and especially these days. And so you're right. It seems to be kind of like a high bar for a lot of different companies.
Yeah, we're heading to 50 million ourselves, so it's been quite far from the 3 million we were yet. I don't feel a tinge of regret or jealousy towards when I see these other companies that get closer, that get to revenue faster. I think it's so fascinating and so exciting for the market that there's so movement and there's so many things happening and so much room for growth and the economy to thrive on this new this new way of building businesses. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Well, how long has the journey been? Is it 6 years? I was trying to find out exactly how long it's been since the beginning.
It's 9 years. 9 years. Mm-hmm.
9 years, okay. And so 0 to 9 years, you're approaching the 50 million mark on
Hmm.
a annual
Hmm.
basis.
Hmm.
Well, what I also read was, you have a strong ethos for the company, and
Hmm.
so that sounds like a better thing to achieve than perhaps the numbers. What do you think?
So there's two schools of thought. So I still aim of doubling next year and getting closer to 100. And I think that growth is beautiful, and it's a beautiful puzzle to solve. And obviously, I want to make sure that my investors are happy, and so are my employees with the share of price, because we do secondaries. Um, I think all of this is important. Yet I also observe that there are other things that are in play. So, for instance, in our case, we have now really large customers that are in 4-year contracts with us, and we're bringing a lot of cash in, so we don't need to ever raise. We have a good long-term view, and we know that we're here for the long run. I see myself doing this until I'm 150. And I love to build a company that has a sustainable kind of growth, and very differently than the models of other companies, in that I really hope to have a what I call conscious capitalism, which means that a company that has a net positive on people that work here, net positive on customers, and on the societal issues that are important to me. So it's interesting to make all of these things work at the same time. I see that a lot of entrepreneurs around me force themselves to think mostly about the cash piece, which is beautiful for them. It's like a beautiful puzzle that way as well. Yet in the process, I see many of them burn out, and many of them get ready for exits early because they can't sustain that kind of high growth without all the other pieces being into place. So in my case, I'm preparing myself to grow this company until I'm very, very old, as old as I can be.
That's a good goal. That's a very good goal. Well, since you've been in business for about 9 years now, I imagine there's been many new kind of concepts and literally types of things thrown at you. Perhaps even people coming in to ask if they can buy the company, or perhaps, trying to ask for different types of financing. Any specific things that you can say in these 9 years that you're like, I wish I would have, known before?
So many beautiful moments happened, the good and the bad. So I'll start with the good, and then we can go to the bad. So for instance, in 2022, we got a financial transaction that helped us sell secondaries, and had me feeling a lot closer to what other founders aim as an exit. And that transaction got us close to $1 billion in valuation. It was like the market was, the multiples on valuations were obviously crazy. Yet it was very good for me to experience that kind of, the type of financial freedom that most entrepreneurs don't get. And it made me understand that it's beautiful to get at that state, and it's beautiful to have it. Yet the goalpost keeps moving. You always say, well, I got that much cash that takes care of me and my family for the rest of the times. But then, okay, well, next, I want to have an impact that's greater on the ecosystem, and I want to do more. So the goalpost keeps moving. And I would have only understood that unless I would have hit that positive milestone. And I think that's one of the main reasons that made me switch towards optimizing for the journey to be a lot more beautiful as it goes, because the goalpost never ends. It's always like Google did 100 billion in revenue last quarter. So it's like, it never ends. That was one example of a beautiful moment that recalibrated me. Then others, just before that, 2020, we almost went bankrupt because COVID hit, and we had to take a PPE loan. What is it called? PPE, I think it was called. I don't remember, when the government was giving money to companies. And we thought that because everything is going to shut down, nobody's going to buy software anymore because everybody's going to be afraid. So we took that loan, and we didn't quite know what's going to happen. But companies started working remote, and they actually needed us more than ever because they were optimizing even more their leads process. So we actually had one of our best year that year, but we never knew if it was going to go well or not.
Yeah, 100%. COVID was a very, very interesting year for a lot of companies, and I'm glad it helped you guys out. So it sounds like a couple of the interesting surprises occurred, and obviously you guys figured it out along the way. But let's talk about maybe some specific categories that I think a lot of startup founders typically have to tackle. So like one of the biggest ones is marketing. Did you find anything specific about marketing that perhaps you could say was an interesting find or a secret you could share with other startup founders?
I knew nothing about marketing, nothing. So I'm, as you can tell, the technical co-founder in the team, and my husband was good at certain things. So he understood how important culture is to brand, and he doubled down on that with all the things. And that helped us a lot. Another thing that he doubled down from the beginning, and that was very smart, before we even got started to build anything, he would go to industry events and I would tag along, and he would find the influencers in that space of what we wanted to build, and he would go straight for them and said, this is what we're planning to build. Does it make sense to you? If they said yes, then we would show them some prototypes and they would give some feedback. And then when it was ready, they would adopt it because it was like they were part of the process. And that's what got us started, because they would then talk to others about us and we would not have to spend a lot of effort into it. And that's how it snowballed. Like that was like a big unlock at the beginning. Those are the two things that kind of started things. But then we made so many mistakes. At some point, we had 22 marketers in our team, and our cost of acquisition was huge. That's when I decided 2.5 years ago to be the acting CMO, because we sell to CMOs, and I wanted to understand a lot more in depth what it takes to succeed, what it takes to have like a low CAC, like a predictable machine of growth. Was the hardest job of my life. Hardest job.
Yeah, I read that post of yours where you described everything about all the different things a CMO has, and then you kind of related with all the challenges.
I feel it in my back just as I write it, it's like my back is like in shadows from the 3M stress of the pipeline.
Yeah, it's definitely not an easy role. Well, how about let's pivot to finance. What learnings did you find along the way? Obviously, you got the PP loan during COVID, and obviously the other story that you explained. But any other things about raising money that you found to be successful, or things that came along the way, or is it just a lot of luck?
At the beginning, we weren't good at raising money, and the reason for it is because most founders have a good vision of what they want to do, whereas in our case we just knew that we were strong in certain areas and we wanted to see how the market kind of leads and what are the gaps that we can solve for. So it's hard to raise without that big picture vision, and we just relied on customers to do that funding for us. We would charge from the beginning yearly contracts before they would even get started, and that's what funded our business. When we got VCs to knock at the door is because they started to see that there was a lot of activity. So our website would start growing in ranks, and like they get alerted, hey, this website is growing. There's something going on there. There's this Chrome extension also that was growing, and they started knocking at our door. So there was a consensus that we're doing well, and which we were, like all our numbers were good. I think that it was interesting for me to observe how the financial mechanics draw the crowds in without us having to do much pitching. It was them trying to insist to invest. Yeah, I say that that's a process that I wasn't very familiar with or very good at.
Yeah, so it sounds like you didn't have like this grand plan to go and reach out to all these different VCs or, pitch 100 or 1,000 and then, hope to God. So they came to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a very interesting story because in all honesty, you hear a lot of these stories about companies reaching to this or that VC, and unfortunately, most of them saying no. So that's awesome that for you guys.
One
Sorry.
thing that's helped a lot is that they would hear from the portfolio companies, hey, we're using Chili Piper, we've doubled our pipeline now. So look at all these amazing numbers that we got out of this software. So it was like, whoa, like all of a sudden they would see at the board presentation that they would double conversion rates and their numbers were double from close one. And it was this tool, Chili Piper, that was the cause of it. So of course, like news spread. That was like a big ROI for such a small tool. And that's was like piquing their curiosity.
And then you've raised a bit of capital since, right? After they kind of knocked on the door. How has that been? Has it been interesting now having people basically involved? More check-ins, I imagine, than ever, and less autonomy. How do you feel about all that?
So I hear some founders saying that having VCs on board implies less autonomy, and I can understand where they're coming from. I don't view it that way. I love that we have this kind of structure in place. And the reason for it is because it's like every time I prepare a board deck, I look at it through their lenses, and it gives me like a beautiful perspective on what I need to optimize, what I need to do better. And it's like a triple check that I'm going in the right direction, that I'm seeing the right trends, that they're seeing they might see something different from. And when you're removed from the company, you just might have a different lens of how things might work, where it gets problematic. And I think that's why the reason why other funders might not like it is that when there's a conflict, when a VC feels very strongly about one point of view and the founder has the opposite viewpoint, they don't have a good process in which they can solve for conflict. And in my case, me and my co-founder, because we're husband and wife, we've worked so hard on whenever that kind of thing happens, when we have super different points of view, how to reconciliate, how to hear each other out, how to understand why there's such a big difference of opinions for the same data. And I would say that that's what kept us alive through all these years, is our very good decision-making process around differences of opinion. And we train a lot of our employees on this. So when a conflict arises and somebody on the board sees something that's very different, then we have a good way of listening to one another, understanding where we're coming from to be able to make a good decision.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. One other area that I think is one of the biggest areas that create challenges and/or successes for startups is the hiring process. So you were fortunate to have your husband right at the beginning. So you had the natural co-founder, but after that, like I imagine the secrets of trying to find the best team members started to become more of an issue. So any things that you learned along the way with hiring?
I'm observing that it's very, very different based on, like, every company goes very differently about hiring. It depends a lot on the co-founder, what they're really strong at and what they're, where they need to be complemented. We have a very untraditional org structure than most companies in that we're very flat. So we don't have layers and layers of C-level executives that are removed, and we're removed from the people that are doing the work. We have right now about 140 employees in 40 countries, and we're distributed, we're remote, very cultural diverse, very, very diverse. We have like Russians with Ukrainians, Palestinians with Israelis, like United Nation type of structure. And we're very flat. So the decision-making process is very organic. Everybody can make decisions, including on our pricing. And as a result, it takes a very special kind of employee to thrive in this kind of environment. You have to be very self-driven because there's nobody watching you. You have to be very focused on results because in remote, you only see the results, you don't see anything else. The decision-making process has to be transparent and everybody has to understand it. So there are a lot of documents that you need to process. And if you don't have that kind of fast processing of documents, the self-driven kind of mentality, then it's impossible. They just can't stay more than half a year, if even. Yet, the beauty of it is that a lot of our employees are very well versed in understanding how the whole business functions. Because all our board decks, all our cash in the bank, everything is transparent and available so that we can make the best decisions. And they understand like, okay, I make this change, but it impacts this and this and this and this and this and this. So maybe I think about it differently. And because they have so many more data points than other employees, they make better decisions as well. So our employees are actually very coveted by others and they get poached a lot. We have a very strong network of alumni that create beautiful ripple effects into the ecosystem. But it's because of that kind of architecture that allows them to touch different parts of the business and understand an SDR, like how does it affect the marketing, how does it affect partnerships, how does it affect customer success. It's just beautiful to see that kind of organic structure in place.
And how did you find these people? Like, do you have a traditional way of literally hiring, or did you have a more unique process of finding talent? Is it through networking? Any particular specifics on how you guys have found all these great folks to join the team?
So recruiting is not difficult for us, has never been difficult. And that's because a couple of things. So the culture has been a focus from us from the beginning. And because of this word spreads that Chili Piper is a great culture, then people associate us with a great place to work at. Our recruiting team is amazing. I would say that when we open a role, like within 24 hours, we get thousands of applicants, if more, even for like CMO roles. So we've been very fortunate that the reputation, the fact that we're remote, the culture has been able to attract a lot of talent, which comes with problems as well, because it's really hard when you're getting so many applicants to pick the right one. It's an ever evolving process, but for certain departments, it's like amazing. Like our SDR team, oh my gosh, I love them.
Well, I was thinking. I met someone else. You're from Romania, correct? I met somebody else from Romania on X, and she happens to be one of my favorite people on the platform. Do you think there's an element of being Romanian that maybe helped you become successful, or you and your husband?
Is it Wana that became your friend online? She's a VC also in AI, or somebody else?
She's basically into investing, and I can tell she's very entrepreneurial. I honestly have not dove into too much of her background, but she just seems like, when you get that sense that someone has just really a great ethos about themselves and just knows how to communicate. She just ends up being one of those type of people that I've met on the platform.
It's fascinating to me because all my Romanian founder friends are women. And it's unusual that there's such a high representation in that particular gender, because it's not like in US, you don't kind of observe that. Obviously, I don't have like the full numbers to understand like what's the breakdown. But Romania, I would say, that has a very different way to create that kind of mentality that I observe is very different than the US culture. So some examples: the pay gap between genders in America, in Romania, is almost non-existent. So women and men are paid the same, more or less, give or take. So there's no such thing as difference. The women do tend to take more of the housework and like raising kids as well, but they still work and they still earn as much as the men. So there's no expectation that a woman would do anything less of. And as a result, I grew up not thinking that I can't do things. And that was like a big thing for me. Second, Romania still amplifies a lot mathematics and science. So I went to Math Olympics myself. I did a master in computer science, and the education system is quite good. I would say that the third component of it, and I think that's one of the reasons why I was so complimentary to my husband is French, is that there's no shame in making money. There's no shame into that. It's quite a badge of honor. For instance, I was in China, and it's the same. Like, it's not gosh talk money. It's like it's good that you manage to do that. Whereas, for instance, in the French culture, it's less. People are less comfortable to talk about it. Like at dinners, you don't that's not something you discuss at lunch. You don't discuss that. If you're with a friend, you don't talk about these kind of things. In Romania, it's very normal, and we just like it's part of like everyday life. And as a result, I understood very well the mechanics very early on, and I took joy in making the mechanics work.
No, like I said, you seem very similar to her, and I'm just now thinking we need to do more research into the Romanian
The
startup
culture.
founders. Yeah. Well, you're the technical co-founder at your organization, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And was there any challenges being a female leader in engineering? Was there any challenges being a female CEO in the startup world? There have been a lot of statistics that point to like female founders not getting as much, capital in the raising process. But have you found any challenges yourself?
Me, I only got benefits from it, so I don't know about others. Me, I mostly got that benefits. So for instance, when I was managing all these engineering teams prior to starting Chili Piper, I would go to engineering conferences and there was no line in the bathroom, which is very grateful for.
No, that's a great benefit.
Yeah. Another one is that I was so obviously different than everybody else. So right now on the video you don't see, but normally I have like super high heels and like very fancy outfits, and that like I stand out in a crowd. And as a result, people are curious, so they come to me and they chat with me. So I get to network with a lot more people than most as a result. Also at conferences, most people are low on diversity, so they call me to be a speaker. So I get to be on stages a lot. Yeah, so I only get benefits from it.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, what I found you on LinkedIn, and obviously you've become quite influential on LinkedIn. How has that journey been? I mean, do you remember when you first jumped on LinkedIn to today, where I believe a lot of your posts get a lot of engagement?
Yeah, so now my social media activities influence 50% of our pipeline, which is very scary, but also like rewarding to some extent. When I started, I was terrified. I would have preferred to just make myself a ball in the bed and not do any posting. And the reason for it is because I know that right now I look like I look like an extrovert and somebody who goes out of their way to meet people. At that time, I wasn't. And I would be in a room, like avoiding eye contact and not wanting attention. Part of it was like childhood trauma. Part of it was like communism, where you're told not to talk. Part of it was my inability to express myself properly because I had not had practice of it. I just like worked with engineers and understood computers, but not humans. So there was like a combination of many things. But I forced myself to try to use my force for good, mostly because I was motivated to help. At the time, there was a war in Ukraine, and I really wanted to be part of helping. And it was the first time that I agreed to speak to a journalist. It was the first time that I was agreeing to speak to like on live TV. And I went on Bloomberg, on CNBC, because I cared so much about, at that time, of the war in Ukraine and helping. And me showing up got hundreds of thousands of refugees on the right path, mothers and kids in the right shelters, making sure that they get safe in their locations and food. And we deployed millions of dollars with my evangelism of ways to help and documents that we've created. That it made me realize, I can stay hidden, but if I stay hidden, I cannot do good. And that was a very strong motivator for me to get outside of my shell.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. And speaking of kids, you have a couple kids yourself, correct?
Yeah. Well, together we have 4 kids.
4. Okay. Wow. Okay. So how's that journey been with the children as well? I mean, are they asking questions all the time? Asking mom, what are you doing every day? Or do you have to teach your kids, what's going on a regular basis?
It's so fun. It's so fun. Because I'm preparing this for the long term and I'm thinking about, okay, how does a new generation think about work? How do they start like different companies and how do they become employees? I integrate them a lot. So I take them to conferences. I take them with a QR code where they can make money if people book meetings with Chili Piper. We build stuff together in lovable, like ideas for business. We build games together. We play games. I think it made me a much better entrepreneur because I can see things that I wasn't able to see before. I appreciate the different parts of humans and how they get motivated. It's allowed me to be a lot better at multitasking and understanding how people act. And yeah, it's beautiful to have that kind of family be part of it as well.
Yeah, well, let me ask. You were raised in Romania, and your kids are obviously now raised in the United States. Do you feel like there's aspects of your education back home that you wish they would have now, or are you happy that they're being raised in the United States? Or any thoughts from the mother's perspective?
What I love about the educational system in America, and I think it's what creates so much innovation and why the economy is thriving, is that they put a lot of emphasis on the individual having enough confidence in themselves in succeeding and understanding what their strengths are, understanding where they need support, and understanding how they can collaborate and thrive with others. And because of that self-fulfilling prophecy that you're great, you're amazing, then they're more courageous in taking things and more creative in how they think about the way they affect for the world. There's also an appreciation for entrepreneurs. They show examples of people succeeding and so forth. So I think that culturally they're doing a lot of things right. One thing that's missing, and it's part of my kids' school, but I observe it in other schools as well, is the showing them that there has to be suffering and pain in order to achieve greatness, and that is not part of the system as it is in Romania or in China. In Romania, we suffer a lot. Like, I've gone through a lot of shit, and as a result, I'm very resilient. I'm not going to like bow down when shit hits the fan. So I'm a lot more resilient, and I wish that was part of the curriculum. I've not figured out how to do that for my kids. I don't know how to make it hard for them. Because my maternal instincts are going to be always to protect them. But I think that's missing, and I haven't figured out how to crack that. And then another piece is how you have to go through very long hours of sheer focus in order to get something that's worth doing. And that kind of focus is very difficult for kids these days because there's such an overwhelm of options, and there's this habit that the new generation has to scratch their itch immediately, like Amazon Prime comes directly to your door. All of this convenience has deprived them of the ability to self-regulate, and they want things right away. They want to, when they feel bad, immediately self-medicate, or worse, would go with drugs and so forth. So there's no ability to stay within the discomfort. And I believe, at least from what I've been living so far, that discomfort is necessary and the pain is necessary in order to achieve great things. I want to put a caveat on that. There's suffering and there's pain, and suffering is not necessary for people to have. But if you're a marathon runner and you're really passionate about it, you can only endure that pain if you're really passionate about the goal, and you don't see the pain as suffering. You just see it as obstacles to get to your goals. And that's something that's not quite figured out in the current school system.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. And that's I can echo that so much. The only suggestion I can have is I joke once in a while that I'd love to just put the kids in the middle of the forest and let them survive for a week and then come back and then pick them up to see if they survive. But obviously we can't do that because who knows if they will survive after that week. But you're right. Grit and just the whole experience living abroad sometimes is so profound and can help people in ways that we don't even realize here in the United States. Thank you for sharing that. Well, this might be a great segue into kind of the last part of the show where we get a little more personal and ask some questions not necessarily related to business. But One question I dedicate to my past cousin. Unfortunately, she took her life many years ago because she did have, some of these, mental challenges, and she didn't know how to deal with them. But this question is more about, you obviously have had many other, difficulties probably along the way. What helps you during those times? Like, do you have good friends that you're able to reach out to? Are there certain activities that you like to lean into more? What helps you during these challenging times?
I love that you're asking this question, and I'm very sorry to hear about your cousin. Yet it's a very frequent story where people are struggling and they can't show that they're struggling because they see on social media that everybody's doing great. They see people around them just showing their best face, and you don't know what's happening behind closed doors. You don't know what's happening. And sometimes even the people who look like the happiest are probably struggling the most. So I love that is part of the journey as well. And I do think that without this kind of coping mechanism and systems in place, is really hard to thrive as an entrepreneur and as an employee. I do so many things. I have a therapist. I have a coach for myself. I have a coach for our company. What else? Obviously, I do exercise, I meditate, I care for my nutrition, I do sauna, I do ice bath, I do intermittent fasting, I do all of the things that you can read on the internet. I do, and I try, and I have like a million things on my desk that I experiment with all the time. Let me show you.
Longevity mix, wonderful.
There's always something on my desk. I would say that for me, out of all these modalities and all the things that I've tried, the biggest difference has made being part of this training that I've done 2022, I think. Yeah, 2020. And group of friends, all of them are helping. The reason why this training, and it was like a 10-day intensive training in Norway around communication, the reason why it helped me the most is because it gave me vocabulary to understand what's really going on, what's really happening that's causing my brain to collapse or to feel worry or to feel frustration or sadness. And without that understanding, I think I would have a much harder time to process things. I know that it's hard to understand how like a communication training can help with the internal demons, but it's helped me put language when I journal to understand the mechanism in which certain thoughts arise, certain triggers happen, why certain relationships could be constructive or deconstructive, could be amplifiers or detractors in my case. It helped me hundreds and hundreds of pages that helped me understand myself better. So that kind of self-awareness helped a lot. I guess people call it higher consciousness, but that's how that kind of awareness helped me the most.
And you said this is a program in Norway, is that correct?
No, it's everywhere in the world. It's part of this nonprofit organization called the Nonviolence, I think they called it, the Nonviolence Foundation, that was started by a guy called Marshall Rosenberg. He wrote a book, Nonviolent Communication. It's on Amazon. It's a bestseller. He died, and now his wife has this nonprofit, and they do trainings everywhere. I'm actually going again in one in Connecticut in 1 week, and I'm kind of so excited to be back at it. That transformed me the most.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So the last three questions that we ask relate, two of them are a little more challenging than the last one's a little bit easier. But if you had to pick a hero along this entire journey that you've had, who would you say is your hero?
When I started, I had two heroes. I had Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, because I really liked that they were not afraid to create big things in the world. And I was so admirative of so many things that they've created. I would say that in the process, I've lost my interest in following their model because, for instance, with Amazon, now they're at the size that they're at, and the fact that there was no system to break that monopoly. Now it's leaked that they're about to fire 600,000 people. I don't know if you saw that, to replace them with robots. The impact on society, that kind of replacements of people and reskilling is like crazy, crazy, crazy. Same with Elon Musk. He's done a lot of good work, and yet recently he's done a lot of damage as well, part of his all the things that he encountered. And my hope is that I want to create a system that has a net positive on the ecosystem. It's extremely hard. I'm not pretending that I'm going to be able to do better, but I think that's why I've lost my admiration in my case. And now I have as heroes people that are close to me, people that are my friends, that are helping me through creating a different kind of system. I have two right now. I have actually many women that I admire in the entrepreneurs and so forth, but two come to mind. One of them is Irina. She's the CEO at Hootsuite. And the reason why I admire her so much is because she has such a beautiful way to manage her team and such an inspiring energy to be around that I wish I could just be more like her. And then another entrepreneur that did a company all the way to 100 million, and now she started another one in San Francisco. Her name is Mada. She's also Romanian, and she has such a beautiful power of network and community around her that is bringing people with her as she's building the company. It's just not an isolated project. She has aspirations to impact the environment in the right way, and that motivates me a lot.
And what company does she run?
She just started one. It's called Upside. She does marketing attribution.
Okay, interesting. Well, we might have to have more Romanian CEOs on the show, so that's why I asked.
So it seems.
Well, maybe there's some other people that you can probably list in the next question. So the next question is kind of related to how you thought about heroes is, what about role models? Maybe these two that you just spoke about are the type of role models that we should emulate, but do you have any others that you could say are good role models for perhaps your kids or my children or whoever?
You know, I keep telling my kids to not have a role model, and the reason for it is because when we imagine that someone is perfect and we imagine that someone is doing great at everything that they do, there's a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves to also try to do everything really, really well. And I don't think that kind of pressure is helpful. Also, every time I met some of my heroes, I tended to be disappointed because there was something that they would give outside to the world, the best parts of themselves, the things that they were a zone of genius. And yet they were just like everybody else. They were with struggles and challenges. And I think that the fact that we put so much pressure on them to be perfect makes them feel a lot worse about themselves in real life, and they have struggles. You look at so many famous people that have such a hard time, and I don't know that is net positive for society for us to have that kind of heroes and role models. I think it's a lot healthier to create our own path, to put ourselves as the role model, just a better version of ourselves in the future to the best of our capacities, and just put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be something else.
That's a wonderful answer. Thank you. All right. The last question is the easiest one, hopefully. So do you have any foods in Romania that you miss, or what's your favorite food, and where do you go and get it?
So I actually don't like Romanian food that much. My mom made a great soup and all of that, so I don't want to diminish her efforts in that regard. But I discovered around when I finally afforded takeout food in Romania, I discovered that I love Chinese food, and I discovered that I'm super loving all the spices. I love all the pots. I love all the hot pots. So I'm my favorite food, and everybody knows in my family, is Chinese, and that's how yeah, it's Chinese food.
Okay. And I imagine you have lots of options in New York City.
Oh yeah, a lot of options, and I eat very diverse. I eat Ethiopian, I eat Indian. I love Indian. I love French food. Obviously, my husband is French, but my favorite, I always go back to Chinese.
Awesome, awesome. No, that's always a good choice, and it's available in most places. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much. Well, one last thing we like to do on the show is make sure that people have an opportunity, our guests in particular, to be interviewed again. I know you've done over 70. I think I counted it, over 70 podcasts interviews, but just in case you might want to do another one, what's the best way to reach out to you in case, you are open to any more interviews?
So on LinkedIn, I'm very active. So people reach out to me, I respond back, and it's myself, it's not my AI. And on LinkedIn, I have linked at the top a Notion doc that has all the contacts for all the inquiries that I have. So you want to pitch me something, you want to collaborate on something, you want to book a podcast, whatever that is. I have like an FAQ with all the right details and calendar links and all of that. I love to have conversations with people a lot. Obviously, my time is not my best asset, but I'm very fast typer. So if people reach out, I respond back super fast.
No, you did with me, so I sincerely appreciate it. And to be honest, I did a little bit of homework when I was trying to find out more about your background. But after spending the time with you here today, I can say that you are a very sincere and very kind person, and I only wish you guys the best. So thank you so much for your time here today, Alina.
That means a lot to me. Thank you for having me.
If your calendar isn't already set, you're missing out on startup wins. Industry leaders, top advisors, and incredible tips await. Come back for future great episodes and entertaining guests, and come back for more insider strategies and incredible stories from the brightest VCs, founders, and operator experts. We're bringing you the best in the business twice a month. Hit that bell and stay winning with Startup Wins. See you soon.